Hello, everyone. My name is Palin Choviwatana from University of Tsukuba. Today, I'd like to talk about this topic, and this study applied the concept of keystone species from ecology to a web system. Okay, let me start. First, I would like to introduce the motivation of this study. Recently, biological perspectives have been introduced to human interaction analysis on the web system. For example, the web system was modeled as a jungle by considering search keywords as a species competing for user attention. From this analogy, I think it's shown here, sorry. Okay. For example, the web system was modeled as a jungle by considering search keywords as a species competing for user attention. From this analogy, the authors can understand the evolution of multiple online activities. Another study classified users in a social network into 3 species and predict if the social ecosystem will be alive or dead in the final states. These studies suggest that analogies can be borrowed from biological ecosystems. Moreover, constructing a system by relationship of their member first allows us to focus on analyzing from the aspect of the relationship, which can give an overall picture of the system. This new analytical perspective may lead to new discovery. One of the important concepts in biological ecosystems is keystone species. Keystone species is defined as a species that has a large impact on the ecosystem when it is removed, even if its population size is small. Initially, a biologist found that after removing the top predator from its ecosystem, some species became abundant, which in turn caused the extinction of many species in the ecosystem. Therefore, keystone is considered as an essential species in maintaining the stability and the biodiversity of the whole ecosystem. However, there are very few studies about the species in the context of web systems. Therefore, we apply this concept to a web system and find the web system also possess keystone species, what is the characteristic of keystone species, and what the characteristic of the community itself that keystone species tend to exist. In nature, keystone species have been studied in many different ecosystems with different types of ecological relationships. For example, food web. Food web have an relationship that species are linked by prey-predator relationship, and seed dispersal, which 2 species are linked if they disperse the same plant species. In this work, we consider the web system as an ecosystem by 3 points. First, species can be influential user or content. So we define user or content as a species in web ecosystem. Second, since activities within nodes can be considered as the one who try to keep species alive, we define number of activities as a population size of the species. Third, we consider that the influential nodes have an influence to trigger other nodes' activity. So we link 2 nodes based on the influence between them. For example, node A have an influence on node B because node B usually get activities after node A get activities. This is how we define web system as an ecosystem. To verify the keystone species in web system, we used bulletin board system as an example of a web system. In particular, the data we use is from Japanese online bulletin board platform service, which provides bulletin board system to more than 80 communities. We received data of 80 communities from 2014 to 2019. In this platform, each community has its own bulletin board, and each bulletin board has its own list of threads. In this bulletin board, user can create a thread and that relate to a specific topic to start the conversation. Threads can be said to influence each other because users move back and forth. Therefore, we consider thread as a species. Number of comments and likes as a population size, and influence between threads as a relationship between species. There are 3 steps to detect keystone threads. Step 1, we collect sequence of comments and likes of all threads. Then we estimate magnitudes of influence between each thread by using multi-dimensional Hawkes process, or MHP. This MHP is a mutually exciting point process, which can estimate degrees of influence on the node itself and between nodes based on activity sequence data. By using MHP, we can estimate the influence between 2 nodes and construct an influence network like the right figure. Step 2, we compute the impact of each node when it is removed by using cascading condition value, or C value. This value represents the activity level of the entire network by using magnitudes of influence derived from MHP. Impact value of removing node I is calculated by simulating the removal of node I, then recalculate C value as Ci. That is, for example, if we temporarily remove all edges that connect with node A, then we compute Ca and compute the impact value of node A. Then we apply this calculation to all nodes and measure their impacts one by one. Step 3, we set 2 thresholds for identify keystone species based on the definition of keystone species with reference to Ecology and Ejima study. Species I is defined as a keystone when its impact is more than a half of maximum impact value, and when its population size is more than a quarter of maximum population size. Therefore, a node in gray area will be detected as a keystone species. Here is a statistics of our experiment data. After we obtain data, we select only communities that have enough data to analyze and select only windows that have enough data to create a thread network. As a result, we got 15 communities with over 6,000 users in average, and totally over 800 windows and over 10,000 unique threads to analyze. The window we talk here is from our data preprocessing. We preprocess the data by dividing sequence of events into 2-week period of window and construct a thread network for each window. Therefore, we construct over 800 networks in this study. This is the result of keystone identification in all communities. X-axis represents time from 2014, 1 dot represents 1 window, and 1 row of dots represents 1 community. Yellow dots represents a window which keystone thread did not exist. The color changed from yellow to dark blue to indicate the number of keystone threads in each window. We found that in 15 communities, there are 5 communities that keystone appear frequently. And there are 2 communities which keystone thread did not exist in any window. Moreover, from over 10,000 unique threads, 16% of them were at least once detected as a keystone. And from over 800 windows, 25% of them have keystone in their network. Here is one of the keystone thread that we found in the cosmetic product community. The topic is, let's talk about our pet. The scatter plot of impact, population size, and the influence network are shown on the right. Here, Keystone node is enclosed by the red square. This result shows that Keystone thread, the thread that has a large impact when it is removed, can be irrelevant to the community purpose. And Keystone node has a highest score of degree centrality in this network. Here is another example of Keystone thread that we found in the food product community. The topic is I won the Wonder Food Prize. This thread is written by the lucky user who received a prize from community owner. We found that this kind of topic tends to be detected as a keystone thread, and it appears frequently in many communities. This is the overall trend of node degree ranking. We found that keystone species tend to have high rankings in degree centrality, as shown in a blob plot in this figure. And we also found the same tendency in PageRank index and closeness centrality. Lastly, let's see what are the characteristics of community that keystone threads tend to exist. First, we focus on C value. C value is used to define the burstiness or the activity level of the network. It is mathematically proved that the system is in critical state when this C value is equal to 2. This figure shows a temporal development of C value of each community. X-axis is time, y-axis is C value plot in log scale. Red dot is a window with keystone. As shown here, most of the red dots or windows with keystone have C value around 2. We then move further to find out how C value relate to the community growth process. So we plot the distribution of C value in each community age. The critical state is plotted as blue bar. From this figure, we notice that the density of keystone windows at the critical state increase with the community age. This result suggests that the system seems to evolve asymptotically to a critical state. We also interested in conducting analysis in terms of the metabolism of the community. We investigate how keystone appearance is related to the process of updating nodes in the community by using 2 metrics, thread birth rate and death rate. We discovered that these results show a tendency that as keystone threads appear more frequently, community metabolism is enhanced. In conclusion, in this study, we found keystone species in the web system, and they tend to have a high score for centralities, and these results are consistent with existing biological research. The most interesting thing is that the system seems to asymptotically evolve to a critical state, and at the same time, as keystone threads appear more frequently, community metabolism is enhanced. These findings suggest that keystone species play an important role in the evolution of online ecosystems. Further, by having keystone species, the system itself can decrease stability and bring about diversity to the ecosystem. As a consequence, the system can evolve. Thank you for listening, and please feel free to ask any questions.
All right, great, thanks. We can all go ahead and maybe give a little bit of applause for our last speaker of the session. So yeah, if anybody has questions, feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, whatever you'd like to do. Okay, we have a question from Emily Dolson.
Hi, I guess I was wondering if you had any intuition for like how the keystone threads that you identified functioned as keystone threads. Like, Is it that people like came to talk about their pets and then that made them stay and talk about other things as well? Or is there some other mechanism that you think might be explaining it?
Yeah, thank you for question. So the question is, do they have some like patterns or something in the conversation, right? So we found that there are some threads that talk about the community itself, and there's some threads talk about daily life, and it goes together. When people come to talk about like daily life or like play some games in like talking with words, they seems to active more active in the community, and then they will talk about the product itself. So it seems like that. So there's a pattern that some kind of like daily life things or some games can be like keystone threads. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. So we'll take this one more question from Genki Ichinose.
Yeah. Hi. I see from your result, maybe some positive thread became a keystone species. Something like maybe let's talk about something interesting like a pet, or I got a wonderful prize. But did you see any negative threads that became keystone species?
I think there's some, because there's around 1,000 keystone threads that we detect, but I think it's quite not that much, because I found very much in like I want the prize or some daily life things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. And just want to echo one of the comments in the chat, which said, this is a really interesting link to make, really neat talk. So let's go ahead and give one final round of applause for all of our speakers this session, and then we'll continue on in the other lecture hall.